Welcome to the Apothic Energy podcast. On the show today is Mika Olin. She is an acupuncturist here in Portland, Oregon. I brought her on the show today because I think she has a unique perspective on tying in spirit with the body, particularly the face. She's done a lot of work in her personal life in learning how to integrate self-care with the spirit and integrating spirit with healthcare. Or health of the face. And why I think that's particularly important for our viewers and quite possibly for listeners in general is that so often we create a distinction between our body and our spirit. We think of them as two separate entities. And so often we're in a place of intuitively knowing or instinctually knowing that the two need to be more integrated. But the approaches that people in my world typically go to are things like movement or sound healing. And we'll apply, essential oils, or we'll use the stone nation to affect our vibration. But we don't really have an understanding of how we can actually care for the body or look at the body or pay attention to the body in a specific way that can actually draw into it more of our spirit, and in that way be more of an accurate representation of who we are as a whole. And for me, so much about my work is tending to the fragmented self, tending to the fragmented soul, bringing pieces of the soul back to the human being due to things like trauma or crisis. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about there being another way to help integrate pieces of the soul that are coming back to a person during a healing process, and how there can be practical applications of caring for your face in the integration process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mika, welcome.
Thank you.
I would love to hear a little bit more about you. What brought you into the work that you do, and what is the source of your passion when it comes to caring for the face and the spirit?
Yeah, so I'm an acupuncturist, as you mentioned. I've been in practice for about 7 years. I graduated from OCOM here in Portland. And I don't have like a really great succinct story of what brought me into Chinese medicine. I think like many practitioners, it was my experiences as a patient of realizing how transformative the medicine and the work was. And once I decided that I wanted to pursue Chinese medicine, I wasn't really sure where I would go with that. I thought I was going to be really into like internal medicine and herbalism, so like digestive disorders, things like that. And those things still really interest me. And of course, with Chinese medicine, we're always looking at all of the systems of the body. But over time, I really have started to develop a really deep interest in the face, facial care. So overall facial functional health, but also aesthetic health. And I think, one of the things that really led me into a passion of that is as a teenager, I was in a really severe car accident right before I turned 18. And in the car accident, I sustained really severe facial trauma. So I was in and out of the hospital for years with reconstructive surgeries. And I had to, as a teenager who at prior was very, and I think like many teenage girls, not all teenage girls, very into myself and my appearance. I had to go through this radical change of completely letting go of my ego and who I thought I was. I mean, when you experience facial trauma and injuries, it's like a complete obliteration of the self. And they were severe that way. Like it was like something when you walk down the street, you notice this, right? And so, I mean, that was also a really formative age, like about to go into college. And I think a lot of women, girls rebel at that time anyways, like kind of letting go of societal constructs. So, where I'm going with this is like, I really rebelled for a while, where I really had this sense like, oh, like beauty, caring about how you look, like that's so superficial. This isn't what being a human is about. Like, who cares about this stuff? Like, not shaving the legs, like, all of the things to rebel against that. but over that period of time, I was still like in the process of going through all of these reconstructive surgeries to get my face back to a more normal appearance. And then in the process of that, just like always participating in self-care, like there was still this part of me that wanted to kind of get back into the parameters of like a normal appearance. And so I would always be like researching different oils and creams, natural, that would help reduce scarring. And so like touching my face a lot or having people touch my face often. And so like, I wish I had like one specific aha moment, but in the context of all of these different things happening, I just started to reintegrate with this idea that self-care is actually really great and really important. And the way we feel about our face really impacts how we feel overall as a whole person. And that's just a way that we can take care of ourselves. And there's much I could say about what societal constructs are.
Mm.
There's still don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, doesn't mean we shouldn't take care of ourselves. Like, even if the goal isn't to be like these cookie cutter images. So luckily, like Chinese medicine provides this really amazing lens for getting there, because it's like Chinese medicine, it's all about like the fundamental bare bottom of Chinese medicine is like balance and interrelationship, like dynamic state of balance. So like a living organism maintains some sort of homeostasis and interrelationship with itself, and then also with the natural surroundings and also with society. A lot of Chinese medicine, actually, the structure of it reflects like the Chinese political structure, the ancient Chinese political structure. Like there's the heart is the emperor, so it's like the idea that how we relate to society also has an interrelationship with our health.
What I love so far about everything that you're saying, it's kind of pinging something inside of me, because in so many of the spiritual traditions, and even some of the ceremonies and the ways that I have sought out kind of initiation into the spiritual realms has been denying the body. It's been going to a place where you kind of undo the body to such a great length that you can reach the spirit. And I think historically, we've just thought of our bodies as being so dense and as something that holds us back from being able to go into those spiritual realms, that we try to make it smaller, or we try to make it go away entirely somehow by depriving it or by not paying attention to it, so that the spiritual body can become more present. And I think that we're moving into a place as a species, actually, where it's being demanded of us to think of ourselves in a different way, and not think of our physical bodies as something that has to be destroyed so that we can arrive at a spiritually enlightened place. I think Chinese medicine in particular right now, and all the things that you've just said, is asking us to find a way for these two parts of ourselves to walk alongside of each other and to be in harmony with each other, because we can't have one without the other. I mean, we're in a physical body, in a physical world, and there has to be a way that we can be both spiritual and physical.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. Like that really resonates with me, like with just my thought process. One of the there's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote. It's something along the lines of, if you don't take care of your body, where will you live?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of what I try to get across to my patients who are less in the spiritual realms, but more in just like the Western, get it all done realm. It's like our bodies are our vehicles we experience our lives in. And so it's just like, that act of self-care as a way of facilitating your interaction in this, humanly space.
Right. It's a way to love all of you
Yeah.
because our bodies are not innately wrong. It is our home. It is the vessel for our soul.
Yeah.
So what are the ways that we can think about it so that we're not in a place of thinking that it's lesser than,
Right.
but is actually vital, is important to being a spiritual person.
Right.
Our spirit is infused into our body.
Mhm.
So what are the ways we can think, and what are the things that we can do that will allow our face specifically to radiate with the spirit?
Yeah. Well, the reason why, the face particularly stands out to me as like this vehicle within the context of Chinese medicine is that um, in Chinese medicine, it's said like the spirit, the Shen, the spirit is called the Shen is the spirit in Chinese medicine, is reflected in the face, like it's open, it's shown on the face. And part of the reason for that is all of our sensory orifices are on our face, and our orifices connect with our, internal organs.
Mm.
So
Can you give us an example of that? Like what is the connection between the face and our internal organs?
So the nose is the orifice of the lung. So we connect through like our lung accesses the outside world.
Through our nose.
Yes. And
I love that.
the eyes are the orifice of the kidney. So a skilled practitioner is able to, or even just somebody with a sense of connection and knowing, you do see these things where you're like, you see the state of how a person is feeling on their face. I mean, I think we all innately have that ability.
Sure. What is the mouth connected to?
The heart. The
Ah,
tongue is connected to the heart. Yeah.
okay. So if something is wrong with the mouth,
Hmm.
then you connect that to there being a condition of the heart.
Right. Well, sorry. So the tongue is the heart, and then the mouth is the stomach.
Okay.
Yes.
Do the teeth have any correlation to anything?
The teeth are related to kidney energy.
So life
Kidney
force energy.
Yes. Yeah. Your root life force energy. So dreams with losing teeth
Mm-hmm.
related to like this depletion of kidney energy.
Okay. What about just dental health in general? Like if someone is not caring for or paying attention to their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
what does that represent, or what would you think?
That's interesting. Like just choosing to not take care of like why that.
Yeah, or being so busy that they're not,
Ooh.
or like paying attention to other things, to
I'm
being distracted by life.
so I wouldn't relate it specifically to the fact that it's occurring in the mouth and the teeth. I wouldn't relate to the function of
Okay.
that, but what I would say is that's more of like a liver spleen thing. So
Mm,
what I'm trying to say is that just is a happenstance manifestation. It could be many different things, but the spleen being taxed, so spleen is like overthinking and liver is stress energy.
got it.
So if those things are out of balance, I could see a manifestation of that being just like lack of attention to the self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overtaxed.
So speaking even more to the connection
Mhm.
of tending to the self, tending to the physicality, being a representation of tending to emotion and spirit.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So what are some of the things that you do as a practitioner that helps to draw out or engage the spirit through the face?
So, I mean, for me, what I'm really passionate about right now is touching our face. I mean, as a practitioner, guiding people to do so. I mean, I do cosmetic aesthetic acupuncture treatments that are able to facilitate, move that along. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is creating a connection for a person with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, self massage on the face, or using different tools. Like I love facial gua sha, which is when you use like a scraping tool to massage the face, or cupping. But essentially, the idea is like touching your face.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thinking about it and being mindful when you're doing so, you know, whether your beauty routine or morning routine is like just splashing water on your face, or if it involves all these different tinctures and, you know, salves that you want to put, um, having intention and mindfulness of why you're doing that.
Right. Because I think in Western culture, at least, so much of why we care for the body is because of how we want to look for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's value in the sense that we want to be an accurate representation, right? We want our external appearance to reflect something in our soul or our spirit that is inviting or is desirable for
Mm-hmm.
other people. But if the only reason why we're doing it is because we want to give that appearance, then it lacks the depth. It lacks the authentic component of being a representation of the spirit.
Yes.
And so what I'm enjoying about this conversation is that there are actual correlations between what's happening inside of you and what's happening outside of you with faith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what are some other things that you do to help connect the spirit and the face for a person?
So, I mean, again, like I would just want to kind of touch more on um, this sense of like intention. So talking about it, like talking about why we're doing what we're doing, like, and it ties in with what you were just saying. So it's like how, and again, because I'm tending to work more with people who are less in the spiritual realms and more in just this realm of trying to um, fit into these molds of society, or the concept is like, I want to look younger, or I don't like the signs of aging, like, right. um but it's like just trying to speak with people about what is the purpose of why you're really trying to improve your appearance. Like I think that even for like the least spiritually minded or oriented person, just this sense that if we're trying, the whole point of trying to look good is trying to feel good. And so why are we doing things that are, um, you know, that aren't making us feel good? And I lost my train of thought a little.
Well, it sounds like that even, in your care for people, you're taking them through conversation
Mhm.
to a deeper understanding of why they're doing what they're doing. Because I like to believe that there is an instinctual component
Right.
to why we care for the face. And that it's not only because we want other people to look at us and, think we're pretty or think that, we are a certain way. I think that we do, like, even if we lived alone and we were never looked at, there would be a certain sense of feeling good because we did something to care for our face.
Right. Or ourselves. But like, you know, and then where I realized where you tied me perfectly back into where I lost my train of thought. But it's also like that sense of connection. And it's like, how can we value that sense of connection with others in this aspect, these ideas of self-care?
Mm-hmm.
And again, like not trying to be like this perfect person to gaze upon, but like how are we facilitating our self-care or the image we are presenting to others as a way of recognizing that we are in a society together. We are in a relationship with each other. How I present myself to you shows my caring for my interaction with you.
Can you say more about that? We took some notes before we were talking, and you said this, that a talking point might be how Chinese medicine helps us integrate into relationships, social connections, and health as a building block of beauty, and why common current beauty procedures often inhibit the sense of connection and emotion as a foundation of beauty by inhibiting facial expression.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a big like food for thought for me recently is like, and so, I mean, I just want to give like the disclaimer that I never, like, it's my personal ethics ethos to not shame anybody for whatever they decide to do with their body. Like, I fully support people deciding to do whatever they want with their bodies. Um, I also just have this concern of what's happening with a lot of the things that are going on in like the cosmetic realms right now, as far as like cosmetic procedures where we're doing like Botox and fillers.
Mm-hmm.
And those are inhibiting people's facial expression. So it's like, what is this? There's just this weird dichotomy of like trying to fit in, like look this certain way to please a person, but then not being able to connect with the person on a real, like organic level because your face is not even functioning properly.
Yes.
And of course, within Chinese medicine, that's just of huge importance because it's like we want the all the aspects of the body to be functioning in at their ideal possible state.
Yeah. So the work you do is not like a denial of the aging process necessarily, but it's a way to care for the face that kind of facilitates the aging process.
Exactly. Like, so, you know, we can try to have a graceful relationship with aging. We can again try to like have the balance, you know, this Chinese medicine idea of balance. So we're just like not like, oh, all of a sudden older, like, right. But we're trying to hold the container a little bit, but we're not trying to say that this isn't happening. Like, we're just saying like we're trying to take care of our vessel and our inner selves in as caring away as possible as we can during these times. So it's like, for instance, in China, in the context of Chinese medicine, it's actually considered a healthy sign to have a gentle like 11 here, like some gentle lines,
Okay.
a sign of like that the liver is functioning properly, because this is an area where we kind of show aggression. And we want to have a little bit of that. We want to have these emotions. We don't want them to overwhelm ourselves. So
So having lines there in between the brow is an indication that you're actually in an expressive place
right.
with your emotions.
Yeah,
Not
a gentle one. And then of course, if it's like really people who have really strong ones, that's like maybe that the liver is being overtaxed. So
do you feel like the work, and I'm asking this because I'm a reflexologist. So for me, there's so much correlation, you know, if I'm working on a certain part of your foot or your hand, I'm actually talking to a certain part of your body. And so when you're going through the face, do you have an understanding, like when, say you're working on that 11, you know, crease between the brows, do you have the understanding that you're kind of talking to the liver while you're in that space and bringing it into balance so that it's, you know, not only relieving the physical expression of perhaps intense aggression or something along those lines. It's not only like removing the evidence of that, but it's also trying to bring the body back into balance so that that extreme or intense expression isn't there anymore.
absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely one of the things that I find to be the value of working with the face, right? So with the Chinese medicine, there's this idea of root and branch. So there's like the root cause of an issue, and then the branch is like the manifestation of it. And there's different theories of treatment. So generally, we want to address the root, but there's absolutely this concept that by treating the branch, we can also affect the root. So like these 11s between the eyes, that's like the branch. But absolutely, we can affect the functioning of the liver, which is related to our sense of stress and aggression, by treating this area of the face and relieving, or just all of the areas of tension in the face, because that's all related to the liver, like this, you know, tension holding.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, so in a sense, it's not only just treating the symptom of it, because you're talking to the source by treating the symptom. It's like kind of reminding the body that it doesn't have to be in that state of holding something. It's relieving it or releasing it. And that carries a message to the source like, hey, This is what balance feels like. This is what it feels like to be in harmony or at ease.
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard this is anecdotal, but I've heard it's based in a study. My experience of it is anecdotal because I haven't heard the study, but I've heard that like having Botox frequently in the area between the eyebrows actually, even on a Western physiological basis, starts to impair the function of the liver. I mean, I think Western medicine would say that's probably the, injection of toxins, but other Chinese medicine practitioners I've spoken with think it's like this idea of impeding the function of the liver.
That's amazing. I like it a lot. I'm looking at a few of our other notes here. And I'm looking at the one that says, how self-care improves our overall sense of well-being and how self-care is the first step in taking care of others.
Yeah.
Followed by why shunning the idea of our image rarely sits well with people.
Yeah. So, that one, the second one, I feel like ties into what we were talking about a little bit earlier, because it's like when we let go of ourselves, we let go of our connection with others. Like, again, like our bodies are our vehicles, we experience our lives. Like, how do we make these connections with other people if we're not out there, and if we're not making these connections? So it's like, I feel like just letting that go totally. This is a little bit in the ethers, but like it creates this sense that we aren't in the game of that. We aren't in the game of creating connection. We aren't in the game of like our relationships with others. So I think that's why it's hard for people to just let that completely.
Yeah. Because we're not in a relationship with ourselves. So how can we be in relationship with anyone else?
Right. Exactly.
And that makes a lot of sense for sure. Now, what about the shunning the idea of our image rarely sits well with people? What did you mean by that?
Well, and that's kind of what I was just referring to. So the reason that doesn't sit well with people is because we are social beings. Like we do experience ourselves in relationship with those around us. So it's like just letting go of all those shrouds of self-care, of appearance, I believe has an impact in this sense of thinking of ourselves as societal creatures that crave connection and intimacy, and think of ourselves as being in relation to another person. And does that make sense? Like,
it does.
How we see ourselves is how others see us.
Right.
So if we don't want to let that go because we want to have that fullness of our own expression, that's a relationship with everyone around.
Yeah, because I think you can tell, like there's a sense that you have when you're close to a person and when you're in proximity with them. There is a broadcast that happens. And part of the broadcast is there's a visual component to it, but there's also the unseen energy that radiates from a person. And you can tell when a person is like really in it and they're like going through like some internal working some stuff out, because it's not something that you just feel, but it's also represented in how they're putting themselves together.
Right.
And, I have seen and been the recipient, of other people being like, you got to do something with your hair or you got to do something with your clothes. You know what I mean? Like what's happening here? And I don't always think, I think more often than not, that we're not speaking to, you need to look better, but you need to feel better. Like what needs to happen so that you can start putting yourself together in a good way. And it's not always a direct correlation that if you're disheveled or you're not, put together in a specific way, that something's wrong. Right. But I think there's a difference between, being casual. Like I think casual is fine, but truly like having hygiene as in your mindset, or or even being connected to like how you want to creatively express yourself, Yeah, I think those are all parts or components of appearance being evidence of something that's thriving in ourselves that wants to express itself in a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that, I have a question about, or like just relating it, and I haven't seen this in your practice necessarily, but I know with a lot of shamanic healers, there is certain outfits,
Mhm.
certain,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've heard it, I have a teacher who does not fall in line aesthetically
Mhm.
with what a shamanic practitioner should look like. And people have gone to her classes and made, not in these words exactly, but the basic sentiment is that she's not crunchy enough. Like she's not, like she does her hair and she has her eyelashes done and she puts on makeup and she's got cute little outfits on that, aren't made of sackcloth and ashes.
Yeah.
And so there is an idea of if you are too put together, or if you look too much like the mainstream, then there must be something off in your spirituality, or you're not getting something right. And so I think that this conversation is really great because it doesn't have to look a certain way.
Right.
It's just the way that you feel like you want to express yourself. And if you are going into a spiritual circle,
Right.
being able to energetically discern that, I think is a key aspect of relating someone's appearance with the level of their spiritual evolution, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that is definitely a very real thing, that there is judgment and like just coming to a conclusion quickly based on how someone feels. And I think what we're trying to say is right now is that it doesn't have to look a specific way, but there has to be a way. There has to be something that's happening that is tied into the spirit being reflected in the outward appearance. Because if you talk to this woman, she'd be like, I love my life. I love my body. I love to adorn myself. I love to, enhance and amplify the components of my body that make me feel good. That's her approach. It's not that I'm trying to draw attention to myself, or I'm trying to look like the mainstream world. These are genuinely, authentically the ways that I care for my body that express how I feel inside. And I think that's beautiful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because again, it's like that fine line of, and where I went like in my early 20s of it's easy to go to shun things and then just also be in this space of judgment and negativity. And it's like, who am I to say like whether somebody gets fillers or wants their nose to look a certain way, or their boobs to look a certain way? Like that's not mine to judge. But also like, how do we align these things so that they feel like they're coming from a space of authenticity and self-caring, and not just because there is this within the context of beauty and aesthetics in the West. I mean, there is a slippery slope of just starting to feel like a puppet of society feels like is appropriate for us. So, I mean, that's the vision.
Sure. You could fall into a program essentially of what caring for the body looks like, which is different than routine, I think, or different than a practice, but falling into a created thought form of what appearance should look like is definitely different. There's a distinction between that and truly being mindful and working with the spirit alongside of the body.
Yeah.
So just looking at our notes now, and it feels like we're getting to the place where we talk about how do you create a culture of acceptance and non-shaming regarding appearance, while recognizing some of the toxic byproducts, physical and emotional, of standard cosmetic procedures. And we've talked a little bit about that before. And I think the piece that I'd like to flesh out a little more, we touched on it already, but how some of the the standard cosmetic procedures actually fracture our relationship with aging and ourselves.
Mhm.
I mean, you've talked a little bit about how, like, just, our example of working with the lines between the eyebrows, Botox anecdotally has been shown to actually affect the functions of the liver. And so my mind goes to, the denial of our aging process is actually causing the breakdown of our body even further.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly.
The exact opposite is happening of what we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're so willing. So many people are so willing to conform to these standards that it's just creates this absolute irony where we're aging the body by trying to make it look less aged. So that's the huge. I love it. The vision I see for the future is that those things are in line. That if we are going to choose or strive to slow the aging process, we're truly doing so by taking care of our whole body health and reflecting on how, considering how that's reflected on the face rather than just like poke, mask, like literally turning our whole face into masks.
Right.
And I just think that it's just so needed for the future, the near future, where I just get frustrated with how our society devalues aging. And then especially I feel like, I think everyone is concerned with aging, but then there is this also weird construct where we tend to value men's aging but devalue women's aging. What's that about? Like, I think that goes, without going too far out, but we all have, or many of us have fear of death, right? So we know that aging is signs that we're, walking closer to that part of our life. But what is like up with this devaluing part, and why is there like also a gender divide that's happening there?
Yeah, I think that's a huge discussion. And what my mind immediately goes to is that I think with women in particular, that it's often, with beauty is considered a power, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very dynamic, and it's very charismatic, and it's very engaging, and so it's easy for men to look at that and feel power, feel vitality. Mm-hmm. But what can often be missed is that in the aging process, there's more of a shift from all of the power being so outwardly expressed, of being such a broadcast of like engagement and even visually being inspiring. It shifts to there being the beauty from within being paid more attention to. With age comes wisdom, comes grace. Mm-hmm. It comes with a better understanding of self. Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of, I am speculating here. I'm not a man, but it feels like from my experience that there might be this fear of, connecting what they would consider the deterioration of one's beauty with an even greater strength or power happening from within. I can't tell you how many women who are in their 40s who are just in this place of unwilling to accept the bullshit of life anymore. Right. They're not in a place of like pleasing or placating anymore. They've arrived at a place of being, having standards and having boundaries and having more connection with their wisdom and their intuition. And a woman who looks older has arrived at that place, I think. Even if it's an unconscious understanding, I think it is still an understanding that a man cannot engage with a woman who has reached this place in her life the same way he can someone who's younger, someone who's more, interested in wielding her power through her aesthetic rather than connecting deeply with her internal power.
Right.
And it's not to say that people in their youth don't have that capacity, but it's just a different focus. It's a different thrill. It's a different way of experiencing life. And I think it's good. I mean, I definitely had lots of fun in my younger years. Working in that realm of outwardly engaging life. And it's just where I'm placing value is different now. And I don't think one value is better than the next, but that perhaps is a reason why there is this, it's almost like a cringing, I feel like, from men sometimes. There's this cringing from men when they see a woman who isn't as youthful. There's something about it that speaks to them, I think, at a deeper level. And I think it's intimidating. I don't even think it's that they don't like it. I think it intimidates them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's like we are just entering more of a time where we'll be able to see that more. Also, like women stepping into their power as they age. Because I do feel like for us, maybe, I don't know what your experience was, but more our example, I saw a lot of women shrinking as they got older, like my parents' generation. And so, but there is these exceptions, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, what is the magnetism that comes out? That's like the real beauty, right? Or that's like the huge beauty that I think we're all getting to. The physical form is like, that's just a codified thing that's accepted in a different way at different times of society. But it's like what we're trying to get to is that like this magnetism, this strength, this power.
I think so. And I think because so much has been placed on the aesthetic that it's assumed that vitality is being lost as you age. And it's more that where the vitality is placed is different. It's not, again, going back to that emitting, broadcast, living life out loud. I have so much left to experience. What happens if I do this? Or what happens if I look like this? What can I do? And then, having that experience and then coming to a place of kind of integrating all of that, like, okay, that's what that was like. And now my vitality is inward. And now I'm, cultivating the soul more. Now I'm cultivating, even your personality more, cultivating my thoughts more, my feelings more. My vitality isn't so much trying to engage the world, it's engaging myself. And in that way, there's a different weight, right? I feel like older women who have integrated all of themselves carry this air about them. There's a gravity that they have, this knowingness that, I think that's beauty, that's grace, and I think it can be reflected in the appearance 100%. And you can kind of see how a person is moving with their age, as absolutely a kind of a representation of where they're at in their acceptance of themselves even. And I think that's like one very small way to look at it. I think it's true in some respects.
Yeah, I love that image. I just like have, kind of like this more mature beauty as like this consolidated energy, and this more youthful like standard of beauty as like this outward. It's like, flowers versus stones or something. Like the rock energy, like the crystal energy versus like the plant energy. So.
Yeah, it's a different kind of beauty. It radiates differently for sure. And neither one of them is right or wrong. It's just a different expression.
Exactly. Like what's more right or wrong, like a flower or a crystal? Like it's like,
exactly. Like that's exactly it. Yes, exactly. And as you move through your life, I think if you're paying attention to yourself, you can feel those shifts starting to happen. And I love that the work that you do provides a way for us, people who are in their 40s and getting out of like what is considered the prime of your physicality, a way for us to still engage what we're feeling on the inside with what's happening on the outside. How do you work with the aging process in your work?
In what sense? Like,
So I know that there's a lot that has to do with caring for the skin. There's a lot you do a lot with scars. You do a lot with fine lines and wrinkles. Is it, and perhaps we've already talked about it, being a way to talk to the internal organs through the face, so that caring for the body actually helps the face have that sense of health and that sense of radiance. Is there anything more to that?
I mean, I would say that, just like on a physical or like a technical therapeutic basis, like how I approach, like as far as like cosmetic acupuncture, like how like the approach deals with aging there is absolutely treating the whole body, recognizing the whole body, having the primary concern being all, the organs of the body being in balance. That's like the first step, right? And then working directly with the face. So working with acupuncture points on the face to just help bring chi and blood. And then I do work also just like on a very like anatomical, musculoskeletal level, like working with just different muscle groups in the face. Again, like if we can get release here, if we can get, or if we can get engagement in the muscle tissues, like that's also impacting our internal health, right? So if we can get the fascia of the face to enliven, we're enlivening all of the fascia because it's all interconnected, one web. So addressing, I mean, it's just as simple as addressing the internal and the external health, really. I mean, the parts of that are like the acupuncture treatment. Then of course, like nutritional, like considering nutrition, considering, herbal supplementation, right? And then considering lifestyle. Like, I mean, what are like the key, like what are the just scientifically proven things that accelerate aging, like stress, poor diet, right? I mean, this isn't even like out there. This is just like, like how we're taking care of ourselves impacts how quickly we're aging. I mean, even not to discount the work I do, but like even just getting people to lay down and rest for, the 90 minutes that like the aesthetic treatments generally take. It's like, that's a, that's a huge part of just helping the body reset, relax. So
I love it. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Extremely informative. Took me to places I didn't know we were going to go. And I always love that. So thank you. Thank you. How can people find you if they want to work with you?
I have a website, www.preferhealth.me. So just preferhealth.me. Just check out my website. It has my phone number, email, reach out.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah Marie.
Absolutely. It was a joy for sure. And I'm sure that we will be touching base again.
Yes. Look forward to it.